What then would be, from some of these experiences, the key elements of an inclusive growth agenda, which we could use certainly in the African context, but in a wider context as well? Clearly, a stable macroeconomic environment is important, but we've also learned, I think from the past 10 years or so, that that alone doesn't solve all of our problems, but is an important and necessary factor to have in place. The second, for many of us on the continent and elsewhere, creating the right micro-foundations for economic growth is also an important challenge. So ensuring that we have the right education policies, industrial and trade policies, labor market policies, competition policy, and practice is going to be a crucial part of ensuring that we create the right structural environment for growth, job creation, and inclusivity. Thirdly, certainly on the African continent, we are at the threshold of moving from merely exporting what we dig out from the ground or grow in the ground to asking important questions about creating competitive light manufacturing sectors and other industrialization forms on our continent. And there are questions being asked in Southern Africa and other parts of Africa about how value addition takes place on the African continent, and that the continent is not just a site of new forms of extraction that colonialism itself practiced many years ago. Another important element will be how we grow and nurture the informal economy. There are elements of discourse which say that the informal economy is not important, and that formalization is the imperative that everyone needs to pursue. On the other hand, certainly we notice this in the South African context, our informal economy is fairly small, and the extent to which people take their own initiatives and create a dynamic for themselves that would benefit them economically is one that is growing but still inadequate. Equally, how we build a link between the financial sector and the informal economy is a terrain that we are entering in South Africa. So we are asking the banks, the insurance sector, and others important questions about developing new products at low cost, which will ensure that even people in the informal economy have access to some level of sophisticated financial products as well. Yet another element, and one of the last few that I want to mention, is the whole question of the MDGs and the work that Homi Karas is doing on the post-2015 agenda. The MDGs, I think, set important goals for all of us around the globe to follow. The one danger that I'm sure he will report on or talk about at some stage is to what extent the MDG exercise became a tick box exercise. And secondly, what is the relationship between a quantitative delivery, with delivering water or education or giving more people access to some of these facilities, and the quality of the product that is actually offered? Because that's the next, if you like, height that we need to migrate to in our sector. Finally, 2 points. One is the role of the private sector. No talk of inclusive growth or job creation or alternative growth models and dynamism. It can happen without some serious inquiry into how do we begin to develop a private sector that also understands what inclusivity means, and which is able to dedicate enough energy and resources to developing business models which, as they have incorporated the double bottom line and now the triple bottom line, and perhaps we're heading for a quadruple bottom line, one which ensures that the private sector consciously contributes to more inclusive societies and distribution of benefits than they currently are doing, certainly as major employers in most of the societies we come from. And the last point in this regard is how we create capable and effective states. It's a challenge we as a young democracy are facing in South Africa. It's a challenge that many states on the African continent are facing. How we budget, how we deal with debt, how we create debt markets within the African continent, how do we implement good policies rather than just talk about good policies, how do we develop good public servants and public services, are important challenges in order to maintain the right balance between government as a promoter of social justice and where appropriate, an intervener in the market, but also importantly as a collaborator with the private sector itself.